Derby County have 8 fixtures remaining in the Sky Bet Championship season as they look to secure survival for the upcoming 2025-26 campaign. But is that something that Derby County are going to be able to do? Now, over the course of the last week, we've spoke about the Championship teams that are in the running in this video over here, and we've also talked about Derby County's running as well. Well, in this video, we're going to be predicting all the final results for Derby County that are coming up over the course of April and that final game on the 3rd of May. Now, for Derby County, it's a very, very interesting run. 4 home games, 4 away, with a lot of those teams that they're playing against in the same sort of position that they are, where they're fighting for survival. Now, for Derby County, it's going to be a massive, massive end to the season, and John Eustace has a massive task at hand to secure Derby County survival. Now, starting off for Derby County, in just a week's time, they will have faced up against Preston North End at Pride Park Stadium, and that's going to be a huge game for Derby because going into that game, they'll know what Cardiff City have done. They'll know what Stoke City, what Luton Town, what Plymouth Argyle. They'll know what those teams have done and they'll know exactly what result they will require. Now, obviously, Derby County will be looking to introduce the likes of Jeff Hendrick over the course of this upcoming 8 games. But will he be able to make a difference? Now, for me, Derby County have played very, very well over the course of recent weeks, obviously picking up 3 victories back to back. Now, I think heading into this Preston North End game that Derby County are going to take another victory. For me, it's going to end in a 2-1 win for Derby County. I think it's going to be one of those games that's going to be very tedious. It's going to remind me very much of that Blackburn Rovers performance where I think Derby County are going to score early. I think Preston North End, are going to get back into the game a little bit similar to that of Blackburn Rovers did, but then Derby County will score a second and Preston North End will score in the second half to bring themselves back into contention. Now, for me, that will obviously then bring in those likes of Preston, QPR, Swansea, Portsmouth right back into that fight at the bottom end of the league table. Now, Derby County then go on to a game away from home versus Swansea City. Now, Swansea City are just 6 points ahead of Derby County as we sit here and speak today. And it's going to be a very, very interesting game. For me, Swansea City are one of them teams where when we need a result, we normally pick one up. I think if you go back to the season under, I think it was Philip Cocu towards the end of the season, I think we went 2-0 down, scored some absolute bangers with Tom Lawrence in that second half to secure a 3-2 win. And I don't necessarily think we're going to win this one. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I think Swansea are going to take the lead and Derby County are going to equalise late on in the game. And for me, I think it's going to be a game that feels like a victory because I think it's going to be one of those results that pushes us just outside of those relegation places and sort of puts us in that position of strength. Now, it's going to be an interesting one because then we head into a massive game at home versus Burnley, which in my opinion is going to be a massively difficult test because Burnley, obviously, if you don't already know, are currently sitting 3rd in the Championship, just 2 points behind Sheffield United, and they're battling for automatic promotion. Now, for me, I do believe Derby County are going to lose that Burnley game. I think it's going to be a 1-0 Burnley victory, but obviously if you go back to when we played Burnley away from home earlier in the season, it was a very, very tight contested game. So if Derby County come away with a victory, it also would not surprise me. I think Derby County do have a massive opportunity in that Burnley game where I think many teams are going to think, well, Derby aren't going to get anything. We need to make sure we get a result, and it puts pressure on them. Whereas for us, it's sort of like a free hit. And I think that's the only free hit we have over the course of the last 8 games. We then head into a game versus Portsmouth, an away game. And I think that's going to be our next away win. I think we're going to beat Pompey 1-0. Now, I'm not saying that Pompey aren't going to put up a good fight. I'm not saying that Pompey are going to fall into this relegation scrap. But I do believe that Derby County are going to have enough to pick up all 3 points. And it's going to be an interesting game for me because I think it's going to be one where it gives Derby County the opportunity to break away from those relegation places, and it gives Pompey the opportunity to do that too. But I also think that there may be the opportunity for either side to fall right back in to those relegation places. Now, if we talk about Derby versus Pompey, if we go back to last season when Derby County were looking to secure their automatic promotion hopes, Pompey were looking to secure the title of League One, and it ended in a 2-2 draw in a game which I believe Derby County should have came away victorious, and had they done so, I think Derby County would would have won the League One title. Now, this is a very, very similar test where both teams are looking to secure survival. Derby County are in the worst position out of the two sides, but it's going to be interesting to see what does happen heading into that one. We then head to another home game where Derby County will face up against fellow relegation strugglers Luton Town. I think Derby County are going to win this game 2-0. I think if you go back to our initial game with Luton Town, which was away from home at Kenilworth Road, I felt as if Derby County should have taken all 3 points that day. If you go back to that day, Derby County lost based on 5 minutes of madness. And it's still very interesting looking back on that game because that's 3 points that Derby dropped based on deflections and things that shouldn't have happened, and that's something that Derby County have to rectify. It's 3 points against a relegation rival that we need to return, and I think Derby County will do that in spectacular fashion versus Luton Town. We then head on to a fixture away from home. Our final 2 away fixtures are coming up against West Bromwich Albion. Now, at current moment, West Brom sits 6th in the league on 57 points, 5 unbeaten at the moment, and going into this game, I do think Derby County are going to take their second defeat in the final 8 games. And I think it's going to be a 3-2 defeat. I think West Brom are going to take the lead early doors. I think Derby County are going to equalise before West Brom score a quick fire double to make it 3-1. I do think Derby County will score late on to bring a little bit of resurgence back into the performance. But I do think West Brom will take all 3 points. Now, for me, that both of the results that I think we're going to be defeated in are against those teams battling for promotion. And obviously, Derby County have something to fight for, and so do those teams at the top, especially West Brom, especially Burnley. And we probably have 2 of the worst teams we could face in that position. Because if you imagine if we face a Sunderland who pretty much have playoffs confirmed, but ultimately not in the battle for automatics anymore, that would have been probably a better game where they could be a little bit on the beach. You look at potentially a game against Millwall where Derby County could have potentially been against another team on the beach, and that's where I think that Derby County are going to struggle the most, and it's against those teams at sort of the top end of the division. We then head into a massive, massive game, which I think is going to be a game where Derby County can secure survival. I think they're going to need a point on this day to secure their championship status as they face up against Hull City at, is it called the KM? Is it still the KM? I'm not entirely sure. At Hull City's ground. It's away from home. And I think Derby County are going to secure that point. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I think it's going to be a very tense encounter. It's going to be a very, very tight game, and all the goals are going to be scored in that second half for Derby County to pick up another point. And then I think we go into Stoke City on the final day where Stoke City are going to be begging for a win in order to stay in the division. And I think that Derby County are going to come away as 3-0 victors. We saw last season against Carlisle United that Derby County did everything that was necessary to secure themselves automatic promotion. And are they going to be able to do that again this season? I personally think a 3-0 victory versus Stoke City at Pride Park to secure survival and make sure they stay in the division for another year is going to be a massive, massive result. Now, obviously, if we go through that, I've predicted that Derby County will win 4 games, pick up 2 draws and lose 2 games. That is an equal of 14 points, which puts Derby on, is it 52, which I think is secured, guaranteed survival in the Championship this season. I think really, if Plymouth Argyle lose their next game, I think they're pretty much gone. If Luton lose their next game, I think they're pretty much gone as well. So obviously, they're my predictions. Let me know yours down in the comments. And if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County content heading your way. It's going to be a very, very interesting end to the season with some massive games coming up in April. There's some huge, huge 6-pointers on the board at the moment, and it's going to be interesting to see how John Eustace and Derby County fare. Well, I'll catch you in my next video.